love bugs, and welcome back to the Love Bug Lounge, a podcast about self-love. Tune in, transform, and continue your growth with me, your host, Mia Rose. As always, I am so happy to be joining you for another episode. Today is a bit of a shorter episode, but still so worth the listen and watch. Life has been, well, at least it's felt insane lately. I don't know if it's been that way for you guys, but if so, let's just take this time to take 3 deep breaths to just center ourselves and get ready to dive into the episode. So, with me now, 3 deep breaths. And hold at the top and out through your mouth. Another one in through your nose. Hold at the top and out through your mouth. And last one, the biggest one you've taken so far, in through your nose. Hold at the top and out through your mouth. Amazing. I already feel so much better. I hope you do as well. Whatever is stressing you out right now, I want you to know that I believe that you can handle this. I know that you got this. Just remember that throughout our lives, there's always been something stressing us out. There are always been obstacles that we didn't know that we could overcome, and yet we did. And so this is just going to be another one of those times. It's going to be one of those times that while you're in it, you can't see the other side, and once you get past it, it's going to make you stronger, and it's going to make you even better at navigating obstacles in the future. I know this advice doesn't exactly help you figure out how exactly it's going to get done, but hopefully it does provide some comfort that this too will pass, and at some point you will feel relief and reap the rewards of all your hard work. All right, guys, and now for the episode. So about a week ago or so, I had a bit of a mental breakdown. I don't really know another word for it. Leading up to the point, I had just felt like I was just a volcano of anxiety and nerves just ready to burst. And day by day, it was just getting worse. And even though I was working out, eating right, doing yoga, getting out in the sun, hanging out with friends, doing all of the things that I felt like should be helping, I still just felt like a bundle of nerves. I just felt like the only true thing that was going to help me get these nerves out or help me feel more at peace or more capable of handling the future was creating a schedule for the future things to come. But because there were so many unknowns, I just didn't have enough information to be able to do that, which just made me more anxious and more frustrated. And what started to happen is I started to feel like I just couldn't deal with the anxiety, and I just kind of fantasized about just getting high or drunk or just escaping the feelings somehow, just putting life on hold and imagining me just having this, fun night where I didn't have to think about anything serious. And so that is what I ended up trying to do. And while I was under the influence, that is when I had my mental breakdown, because I didn't escape the feeling, I actually intensified it. My very sweet boyfriend ended up having to take care of me while I said terrible things about myself. That is my very sweet boyfriend that just came in. Oh, your keys? Might need those. I love you. Bye, baby. Have a good day. Yes, so my very sweet boyfriend had to take care of me while I said terrible things about myself, and then ultimately projected these terrible things onto us and our relationship. And I woke up the next morning feeling sick and hungover and disgusting, but I didn't really remember the night before, which is the first time that's ever happened to me. And my boyfriend had to tell me what happened, had to tell me the things I said. I felt devastated. I felt like a monster. And like usual, as I felt like I've learned before and have told you guys, but sometimes we have to relearn the same stuff. The vice ended up making the problems worse instead of better, and it didn't get rid of anything, actually. It just gave me more to deal with. So today, I am here to talk about some of those fears and things that I said, some of the thoughts that got me into that place, and how I'm going to prevent that from happening in the future. Hopefully you can learn from this so you don't have to experience it. And if you are experiencing this, then hopefully this episode can make you feel less alone. So the biggest fear that kept popping into my brain was the fear that I was a failure, that I was an imposter, and that I was going to lose everything that I'd worked for. I feel like I just kept hearing versions of that over and over and over in my head. I felt like I just kept asking myself, what's the point? What's the point to working hard in school? What's the point of working hard on the podcast? What's the point of working out or stretching? What's the point of pushing myself to eat better, to get out of bed, get out of the house? What's the point of any of this? I'm always going to be trash. I'm always going to be a mess. I'm always going to actually be unhealthy mentally. And all of this stuff isn't going to help me hide from that fact. This is just who I am. During the mental breakdown, just being so mean to myself, I just felt like all of these healthy betterment things that you're doing, this is for other people. This isn't for you, because you're never going to be like other people. Like, this works for other people. This is not going to work for you. You're never going to escape this. Stop pretending. Stop thinking you could be anything other than what you are. And I felt like what I am is just disgusting, just mentally ill, sad, anxious, just I felt exhausted. I felt like I was drowning, and I felt like I was just continuously trying to outrun my genetics. Like I was running for my life against the things that came naturally to me. If you are a visual thinker like I am, what I saw in my head is I'm running away from this scary big black cloud blob monster thing. And as I'm running, I'm knocking things over, trying to slow it down. And those things that I'm knocking over and trying to put in its path to slow it down are my healthy habits. But at this point in my life, it just felt like this monster was just overpowering them and stepping over them so effortlessly. And it wasn't always this way, but at the moment it was. And I just felt like, what's the point to keep running? I should just stop and let this huge monster thing catch up with me and let myself just get absorbed by this thing. I didn't feel like normal people have to run. I didn't feel like normal people have a gross blob even chasing them, and they probably don't even know what it looks like in the first place. And if that's the case, then I'll never be them. So what was the point of trying? Ultimately, that was the stuff that I was saying, that I was a failure, that I was a loser, that I was always going to be this way, that I couldn't be saved, I'm just a pretender, I couldn't do this anymore, just all those terrible things. And that's terrible and it's sad. But the part that really sucked is I really started to project this onto my partner. I basically was saying things along the lines that if he was with me, then something must be wrong with him. And I said some other terrible stuff that I won't be getting into right now. But it was really heartbreaking for me to hear him recount this to me the next day. It was terrible not really being able to remember any of it. The things that I did remember was just his kindness. I remembered him getting water for me. I remembered him moving the trash closer to the bed for me. I remembered him holding me while I cried. And I would just never imagine that he would be the focus of my insults and just of this version of myself. I never in a million years could have thought that that was going to happen. This was a rock bottom I had never ever hit before. This was a version of myself that I'd never been before. I had never hurt someone in this way. I had never been mean to someone like this. I had never projected onto someone like this. And then the fact that it was him out of all people, it tore me apart. I was a mess the next morning. I just felt so disgusting. Like, it was like, I just wanted it to be a dream. I've never felt that amount of just guilt, and I didn't even feel like looking in the mirror. It was a terrible, terrible feeling. It just made me want to listen to all those cruel words I was telling myself even more, the ones that told me that this was all I was and all I was ever going to be. I come from a family whose words can and often slice right through you, who often don't feel remorse for it, and if they do, it isn't communicated. They feel like, it's kind of your job not to be too sensitive, and if you don't want to get hurt, then don't do something or be someone that'll get you hurt, that type of thing. I felt like that was the type of adult or person I was bound to grow into, but I know a small part of me refused, and I remember that's one of the reasons I started doing all this in the first place. I wanted to be better for my friends. I wanted to be better for my loved ones. I wanted to be better for my partners. I wanted to be better for myself. And I thought about this big, scary blob cloud monster thing, and I thought about when it did consume me. It was a time I didn't even realize that was a feeling I could escape. I didn't realize that monster was actually something separate from me. It was obviously a very dark place. It was sad. It was scary. I didn't see it getting better. I never saw myself feeling any different. And I thought about where I am now, how far and in between those days are, where I feel like that's all I am. And I feel like it'll never get better. Those days once were every day and now are so rare. I thought about how now when I have anxiety attacks, it actually kind of surprises me. And in those days, anxiety attacks were something I was bound to feel daily. It was more of a wondering of when it was going to happen in the day, not if. And that's growth. And I had to remember that no one said that growth was going to be easy. Quite the opposite, actually. I was warned that it's hard. And so, yes, I had to just sit with the fact that is the working to get better effing hard and tiring? Yeah. Does it feel like having to make the conscious choice every day to show up for yourself? Yes. Does it come naturally yet? No. But at the same time, what's the alternative? I let myself sit and rot. I let myself be consumed with self-hatred. I project all of my fears and insecurities on those closest to me and end up alone. Come on now, I don't think so. I guess I just got really frustrated with the fact that it feels like my first thought or want when it comes to taking care of myself isn't the right one necessarily. It feels like I'm constantly having to force myself to do the harder but better thing. And yeah, I'm always proud of myself for choosing it. But I really started to ask myself, when will it just be my default thought? When will my first thought to do harm or not do as good for myself, when will that not even pop into my mind, not even be an option? For example, say I have a couple hours of free time. Do I want to lay in bed, probably doom scroll, or do I want to go work out? I want to lay in bed. And yes, rest is good. But if I felt no guilt, I would probably choose to lay in bed every single time. Another example, if I'm going through a rough time in my life, something that has me really riled up, do I want to do some breath work and journal? Or do I want to just smoke and watch a movie? I'm probably leaning towards smoke and watch a movie almost every time. And there are so many other examples of this, and that was just really frustrating to me that I have to like my first thought of like how to cope or how to fix it, I then have to come up with the second thought that's like, okay, this is actually the better thing to do. No, we're not going to do that first thing, Mia. But I do know that when you keep choosing the next right thing, eventually it doesn't become a choice. It does become second nature. Eventually, the alternative you think of is not the more negative one, but actually a more positive one. And I know this because I realized actually while I was brainstorming and writing this episode that this has already happened in two major parts of my life. The first one is self-harm. I actually, at my worst now in my life, at my most angry at myself, with my most anxiety, at my saddest, at my most frustration, at my most guilt, I don't think of self-harming as an option anymore. And I know that might sound crazy to someone, that they're like, well, good, I would hope you don't think of it as an option. But as someone who used to take this way out for most of my coping, this is pretty insane. I saw self-harming at the time that I was doing it as an immediate fix-all, even though over and over and over it didn't fix my issues. It just delayed me having to feel the feelings from my issues. But yeah, it's kind of crazy now that it just doesn't pop in my mind to do. And when it does pop into my mind, it's not as like this is an option for how I could fix things. It pops into my mind like, wow, this would be one of those times that I would self-harm. And look at me, not self-harming and not even wanting to. So that's pretty awesome. That's pretty great. Another way is with my eating. I used to really have just an intense sweet tooth. I would eat sweets whenever possible. Like if they were around me, I had no self-control. I probably had ice cream weekly. I craved also just really fried, greasy, cheesy foods. And I don't regret this time. It was mostly in my adolescence to like my late teenage years. I feel like that's a time that you can afford to kind of eat like this. But it also was like during that time that I was eating this way, I really did see myself eating this way forever. I saw choosing healthier alternatives as restricting yourself. And I couldn't imagine a time that I'd actually prefer it. A time where I'd rather have organic chia seed pudding over some deep fried Oreos. I do now. I really, if you put those two things in front of me, I would choose the chia seed pudding every single time. And that's pretty insane. I, of course, still have my sweet tooth, and I do treat myself to dessert every now and again, but my mindset and my cravings are so different. Even from just a year or two ago, my eating habits are so different. The way that I've cut out pork and mostly don't eat red meat anymore, and I don't have fake dyes anymore, and I don't really crave fried food at all anymore. I don't really have a taste or liking for many of these things, and my eating habits and cravings and wants are just rapidly changing in a beautiful way, and it just really astonishes me. And that's because I just kept choosing the next right thing. So I know it works. I know eventually it's not a choice anymore. It's just a part of you. Eventually you're just shaped into the person you want to become, and it's through these consistent everyday choices. Discipline and consistency, they don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a 5 a.m. routine. It doesn't have to be a perfectly constructed schedule. You don't need the routine from American Psycho or Cassie in Euphoria to consider yourself disciplined. To be disciplined, it's just choosing the right thing, often the hard thing, more often than you don't. Even if that's just 51% over 49%, you know? For me, it has always been easy to choose to do the right thing for others, for my relationship with others, whether that's in, conflict control, whether that's just me trying to be a kinder person or make a stranger's day. It's always been very easy for me to try and put others first, or at the very least place myself in their shoes. But it's also always been a lot harder for me to want to do the right thing for myself, to want to make sacrifices for myself. And I think it's like that for everyone, or Maybe not. I actually don't know. Maybe for some people, it's common sense to be more forgiving and loving and thoughtful to yourself than it is to be to some random stranger. But at least for me, in my case, it has been more difficult. And that's why I never all the way quite agreed with the saying that you can't love somebody until you love yourself, because it was actually always very easy for me to love others, to see beautiful qualities in them, to make sacrifices for them, to love them, and do everything that just came with that, even at the times that I hated myself. And often through loving others, through doing things for others, sometimes that actually made me love myself and helped me learn how to better love myself and helped me realize that I was worth loving. I now understand that there's no action that makes me worth loving. I don't feel the need to prove to myself that I'm worth compassion or happiness. I just know that I am. Even when I make mistakes, even when I feel out of control, even when I'm not in a caregiving role, and even when I don't stick to my goals. And through this understanding, I understand that it would not be an act of self-love or even self-preservation to let myself succumb to all these negative and untrue thoughts about myself, the ones that tell me I'm unworthy and incapable of being healthy and happy in the long term. I understand that feeling like an imposter when you're doing a good thing for yourself, it's natural if those good things weren't taught to you or you didn't learn how to do them growing up. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel like an imposter because they're new. You're not an imposter. Think of yourself more like a very new student. And one day you'll be a teacher and maybe a student to a different thing in your life. But you'll never get there if you don't try and learn. If you give up, you're never going to get there if you tell yourself that you aren't good enough to even learn or look at the material. You have to just keep showing up and looking silly and feeling kind of silly. It is a little bit daunting to think that maybe this is all life is, just showing up and choosing not to do the shitty thing. But then again, what's our alternative? Having no choices at all? It's way more terrifying. Or having no growth or desire for it. And how boring and seemingly meaningless would that be for us humans? One last thing that I've learned from this whole experience, the last thing I really understood is that you really do have to listen to your body. In the days leading up to my little mental breakdown, I kept my routine the same. Light stretching, the same workout routine, the same of everything. And that is great in some ways. It's great on paper, at least, but our body needs us to change and adapt with it. This was a schedule that I created and often did when I felt very centered and grounded and at peace with myself and my life. But at this time, my body and my emotional regulation was completely off. And so this routine wasn't cutting it. It wasn't soothing it. My body needed a completely different way of coping. I should have, in the days leading up to this mental breakdown, which, let me just say, I'm glad it happened because I learned a lot. But I think if I would have included something like dancing or boxing or even just jumping up and down and shaking every single limb until I laughed or at least was out of breath, I think that would have prevented it. I think I needed to do something that got out all that pent-up energy and anxiety. So like I said, this experience has taught me so much. One, that routine is good, but it needs to change with you in a realistic way. Life happens. Two, that hard things will happen and I'm strong enough to get through them. Three, that my happiness and peace is worth all of the hard work and dedication. Four, that people will love me even when I mess up, even when I'm unpleasant, and that I'm allowed to be forgiven without having to punish myself all day, every day. Five, that it does actually all work out in some way or another. And lastly, six, what doesn't kill you makes for good podcast content. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I hope it reminds you of your worth and your strength. I am incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. Seriously, This podcast has changed my life, and y'all make me want to keep going even when I'm tired. Y'all make me hold myself accountable in ways that I've never done before, so thank you so much for that. I know today is the day after Mother's Day, so I hope everyone was able to have an enjoyable and meaningful day. I am sending extra love and extra hugs to all of you that have a particular difficult or hard Mother's Day for one reason or another. As this podcast comes to an end, I'd like you to wrap your arms around your body and give yourself a huge hug. I really don't care that it feels silly. It did the first time I did it, but now I have been doing it for years. So it could be 5 seconds, it could be 5 minutes, it could be longer, but give yourself a hug. Maybe you close your eyes, maybe you rock back and forth a little bit, but with this motion, I hope that you feel as loved as you truly are and deserve to be. I hope that you feel your body and you realize that this is something worth fighting for. This is someone that's worth defending. This is really such a small but powerful pose, and you could come back to it anytime. And if there's any reason that you can't do this pose, I would like you to repeat in your head out loud, I love you, Mia, fill in your name. I love you, I love you, I love you. Repeat it like 3 times. It's an act that is equally as silly feeling, but just as powerful. Look, we are not at this podcast to look cool. We are here to be healthy. We are here to find a safe space in each other, but also ourselves. We are here to feel joy. So yeah, I don't care how dumb it feels or looks, because it's going to help us in the long run. And you probably only feel dumb because you feel vulnerable, which often we need to be vulnerable for the real work to work. So lean into that feeling, give it a little try, and when everything is okay afterwards, it'll give you the confidence to lean into that feeling again later at a different time. And that'll give you a little bit more confidence, and so on and so forth. So with that, my lovely, lovely, lovely friends, I bid you farewell. As always, reach out to me anytime, send me some love, comment, like, subscribe, share, and follow, and I will see you next time.